O-Level Chemistry Notes Part 3. We will be discussing about ionic bond in this video. Now, what is ionic bond? An ionic bond is formed due to electrostatic force of attraction between two oppositely charged ions. For example, we have two atoms, sodium atom and chlorine atom. Sodium atom loses its outermost electron and chlorine atom gains the electron. As a result, sodium gets +1 charge and chlorine gets -1 charge. Since sodium and chlorine ions are oppositely charged, as you can see, the sodium is +1 and chlorine is -1, they kinda attract one another. Just like the magnets where north and south pole attract but south and south or north and north does not. So over here the rule applies that unlike charges will attract and like charges will repel. This attractive force in between sodium and chlorine is known as electrostatic force of attraction, or also known as the ionic bond. This force of attraction causes these two ions or two oppositely charged ions to attract one another and become close to one another. When they become close enough, they form the compound, and for sodium and chlorine, they become sodium chloride. Summary: how ionic bonds or ionic compounds are formed. Ionic bonds occur between metals and non-metal atoms. Metal atoms lose its electrons and become positively charged ions. Non-metal atoms receive electrons and become negatively charged ions. Now, why they lose and receive or gain? Try to recollect the octet rule. Now, moving on. Then they become oppositely charged ions that attract each other by an electrostatic force. This electrostatic force is known as ionic bond, and thus ionic compound is formed. Now, what are the properties of ionic compounds? Ionic compounds form crystalline solids, are often soluble in water and form ions. They have high melting point and they conduct electricity when molten or dissolved in water but not when solid. Example: salts, sodium chlorides. Why ionic compounds form crystalline solids, or why the crystalline solid structure is very strong? In ionic compounds, the oppositely charged ions attract one another by the inter-ionic electrostatic force. This helps the ions to be arranged in a large three-dimensional lattice called the giant structures. The arrangement of ions depend on ionic radius, which means the number of shells they have. The larger the number of shells, the ionic radius will be larger. And also the amount of charge they belong to. For example, sodium has +1 charge and magnesium has +2 charge. So obviously magnesium will have a bigger charge. So more the charge and less the radius, stronger the structure, which means sodium chloride structure will be less stronger than magnesium chloride structure because magnesium has more charge. In exams, they often ask the following question. For example, why magnesium chloride structure is stronger than sodium chloride? Well, because in magnesium chloride, magnesium ion has +2 charge, and in sodium chloride, sodium has only +1 charge. +2 charge is greater than +1 charge, so magnesium chloride will have better force of attraction or larger force of attraction or ionic bond than sodium chloride. Another example is why sodium fluoride structure is stronger than sodium chloride. Well, here the fluorine in sodium fluoride has less number of electronic shells compared to sodium chloride. So try to imagine having less electronic shells means the atom or the atomic structure becomes smaller. So if it becomes smaller, it will be able to attract more. Why ionic compounds have high melting point? Because of the great attraction between the oppositely charged ions, a large amount of energy is needed to separate them. When heat is provided, kinetic energy of particles increases. When this kinetic energy is equal or more than the force of attraction or the ionic bond, the ionic crystal starts to melt. This is because it will cause the ions to vibrate. This vibration will cause the ionic bond to break, so they melt. If further heat is applied, this molten compound will be converted into gas. Well, if you don't understand this part, you have to review solid states of matter of chemistry. I'll also try to make a chapter if needed regarding that chapter. Why and how ionic compounds form ions in its solutions? To answer the question and also to understand the question, first of all we have to understand the properties of the solvent we are trying to dissolve our ionic compounds into. Now here we're gonna choose water because water is universally considered as the standard solvent. So water is a polar molecule. The electrons in the bonds of water are attracted towards the oxygen atom of bond. This makes the oxygen atom in water slightly negative and hydrogen atom slightly positive. These charges disrupt the inter-ionic electrostatic force between the two oppositely charged ions of the ionic compound, which means there is an external attraction or attractive force occurring on the ionic compounds or the atoms of the ionic compounds. Thus, ions are separated and they are formed in the solution. Why ionic compounds conduct electricity only in molten or dissolved form? Please, I repeat, only in molten or dissolved form. Ionic compounds do not conduct electricity in solid form at all. When molten or dissolved in water, the ions of the compound get separated and can move freely. Try to remember the previous question, why they become separated and why they form ions and how they can move freely. So when a voltage is applied, these ions can actually carry the energy or the volt or the charge from one end to another and conduct electricity. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope this video's content was very helpful to you all. Also feel free to subscribe to Axial Notice. Don't miss any upcoming notes because I'll be making different videos about different chapters, and hopefully I'll be making about covalent bonds in my next videos. And don't miss it. And if you really like the contents of this video, you can actually download the file in the link given in the description down below. It will be very helpful to you all. I think you can use it for your revision purpose because I have tried to condense the information into simpler terms. And thank you everyone for watching Axial Notice.